Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking something absolutely fascinating. It's essentially a journey straight into the architecture of our own minds. We're going to be looking at the science, the psychology, and honestly, the raw reality of pushing past our psychological boundaries to achieve some true personal transformation. If you're someone who's super focused on evolving and expanding your own capabilities, and you really want to understand how your brain actually processes limitations, well, you are exactly in the right place. So let me ask you something right out of the gate. What happens when you hit a wall? We've all been there, right? I mean, you're working on a massive project, maybe training for an event, or just trying to build a new habit, and then suddenly, bam, you reach what feels like your absolute undeniable limit. You feel completely stuck, you're exhausted, maybe kind of bored, or just deeply uncomfortable, and your brain is practically screaming at you to stop. But what if that wall isn't the end of the road? What if it's actually just the beginning of your evolution? Okay, let's dive into this, starting with the legendary Bruce Lee. He had this beautiful, defiant way of looking at it. He said, "There are no limits. There are only plateaus, and you must not stay there, you must go beyond them." I absolutely love this empowering idea. He's basically telling us that what we perceive as this impenetrable, solid boundary is actually just a resting point. It's just a temporary plateau before your next major breakthrough. You haven't hit your maximum capacity at all. You've really just reached the edge of your current comfort zone. And building directly on that thought, Michael Jordan tells us, never say never, because limits, like fears, are often just an illusion. And you know what? Biologically speaking, this is incredibly accurate. The human brain is hardwired for self-preservation, so it uses these perceived limits as a sort of biological emergency brake. When we hit that wall we were just talking about, the barrier usually isn't physical. Actually, the barrier is a neurological illusion crafted by our own fear of failure, our fear of discomfort, or sometimes just a lack of belief. It's so vital to recognize that your mind will almost always yank that emergency brake way before your body or your actual capabilities are truly depleted. And this brilliantly illustrates what author Roy T. Bennett means when he captures the core of this challenge. He wrote, "The biggest wall you have to climb is the one you build in your mind." Think about that for a second. We are quite literally the architects of our own obstacles. Your own negative self-talk, your creeping doubts, and those deeply ingrained narratives you tell yourself about what you can and cannot do, those are the real walls. To experience a true breakthrough, you first have to dismantle those cognitive obstacles you've unconsciously constructed inside your own head. So, okay, how do we actually dismantle that wall? Like, what is the practical reality of breaking limits? Well, mental skills coach Chris Mons points out that the secret isn't magic. It's simply a matter of digging a little deeper and lasting just a little bit longer than the pain, the boredom, or the discomfort. When you think you're totally topped out, like you have absolutely nothing left, your nervous system is actually just trying to conserve energy. Overcoming that mental wall really just requires you to outlast that temporary urge to quit, just long enough to discover the vast reserves of energy waiting on the other side. But to outlast that discomfort, you need a very specific kind of armor. Now, according to some great insights from Success Magazine, mental strength is not about being this cold, rigid, unshakable robot. Not at all. It's about staying steady when life feels totally off balance, and you achieve that through clear focus and gentle persistence. It's not about never feeling fear or never getting exhausted. It's about regulating your nervous system so you don't just panic under the pressure. It's that quiet, mindful resolve to just keep moving forward when things get really tough. We can clearly see this in action through Brian Tracy's concept of the leadership mindset. When faced with a massive struggle, followers tend to focus on and talk about the problems. They dwell on the wall. Mentally strong leaders, however, they focus on and talk about solutions. They use cognitive reframing. They don't waste precious mental energy complaining about the limits. Instead, they immediately start strategizing how to scale them, tunnel under them, or just smash right through them. So what's the psychological armor required to actually do this? Success Magazine gives us this amazing interconnected toolkit. It's not just abstract stuff. First, you've got to cultivate a clear focus to stay locked on your goal, not the obstacle. That pairs right up with practicing emotional discipline, making sure you don't let temporary frustration dictate your actions. And this next one is huge: maintaining kind self-talk. Remember, the wall in your mind is built with harsh words. You've got to tear it down with encouragement. Next up, rest, don't quit. Taking a pause to recover is a sign of strategic strength, not weakness. And finally, listen before reacting. Take a breath, assess the situation calmly, and then make your move. So the crucial point is, we often hope that if we just wait long enough, our circumstances will magically become more accommodating. But as Steve Maraboli notes, life doesn't get easier or more forgiving, we get stronger and more resilient.
The harsh truth is, the environment isn't going to lower its standards for you. The wind isn't going to just stop blowing because you're tired. The only variable you actually control in the equation is your own internal evolution. You have to actively engage neuroplasticity to wire your own brain for resilience.
And that brings us to a foundational concept here: resilience. Resilience is choosing growth when comfort says stop. Because look, your brain is hardwired to seek comfort and safety, right? So hitting a limit causes your desire for comfort to practically beg you to stop right there in your tracks. Resilience is making that conscious, active, and sometimes daily choice to push past that biological urge and boldly say, no, I am going to keep growing.
And sometimes, hitting an absolute limit, experiencing what feels like total, catastrophic failure, is actually the greatest catalyst for that growth. Think about J.K. Rowling's perspective. Rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life. When everything else is completely stripped away, that incredibly hard, painful rock bottom is very often the most stable place to start building your mental strength anew. It removes all the illusions of comfort, and it literally forces true adaptation. Because let's be honest, the victory lap doesn't build the muscle, the heavy lifting does. Arnold Schwarzenegger reminds us that strength does not come from winning. Your struggles develop your strengths. We all love the idea of success, sure, but it's the resistance that forces the adaptation. The struggle itself is the forge that creates your power. When you make that hard decision not to surrender during a hardship, that is the exact neurological moment true strength is born.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because when we finally break our limits, transformation really occurs in two primary ways. It can be sudden and explosive, kind of like a volcano erupting, a massive storm clearing the sky, or lightning striking. It's an immediate, undeniable shift in how you see the world. But transformation can also be gradual and intentional. It's the quiet river relentlessly carving a grand canyon over millennia. It's the tiny seed slowly growing into a massive tree, or a careful sculptor shaping clay over months and years. Both paths are incredibly powerful mechanisms for human evolution. Now, perhaps the most famous metaphor for this kind of evolution is metamorphosis. Think about the mental struggle as a step-by-step biological process. Step 1 is the caterpillar. You're hungry, you're consuming knowledge, you're full of raw potential, but you're still confined to the ground. Then, step 2 is the chrysalis. And this is the crucial part. This is where you hit the wall. It's a period of hidden transformation in the dark. It feels restrictive, it's messy, it's difficult, but true fortitude grows in that darkness. And finally, step 3, the butterfly. The graceful emergence where you finally display your newly forged capabilities to the world.
But as you undergo this metamorphosis, cognitive flexibility is absolutely essential. Author Robert Jordan wrote, "The oak fought the wind and was broken, while the willow bent when it must and survived." As you push past your limits, please don't confuse mental strength with rigid stubbornness. True resilience often looks much more like flexible survival. You've got to be willing to bend, to pivot, and to adjust your mental models when you hit an obstacle, rather than just repeatedly smashing your head against it.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the ultimate metaphor for pushing past boundaries is the phoenix rising. Because sometimes breaking your limits actually means letting your old self completely burn away. You have to shed those outdated coping mechanisms and limiting beliefs. The phoenix metaphor captures this idea of total rebirth and renewal just perfectly. You don't merely survive the hardship, you emerge from the ashes of your struggle completely transformed, radiating light with a brilliantly renewed sense of purpose and a totally new identity. Ultimately, guys, this is all about the lines we draw for ourselves. Shonda Rhimes issues such an empowering challenge here. You can waste your lives drawing lines, or you can live your life crossing them. Every single time you say, I can't do that, or, well, that's just how I am, you are drawing a line. You're building a mental wall and feeding the illusion of a limit. The absolute greatest adventure of personal evolution is making the decision to stop defining your limitations and to start actively, bravely crossing over them. We've journeyed through the biology of illusions, the practical psychological tools for the struggle, and the profound beauty of transformation today. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Look inward and ask yourself, what stage of metamorphosis are you in right now? Are you the hungry caterpillar gathering knowledge? Are you in the dark, uncomfortable chrysalis, fighting through the struggle and rewiring your mind? Or are you getting ready to break through that barrier and emerge? Wherever you are, embrace the messy, beautiful journey of change. Keep pushing, keep growing, and I'll see you in the next explainer.